that's something I love about teaching is teaching young kids, especially, is being able to kind of introduce them to these bits of identities and the fact that they're allowed to navigate that however they want. I'm Becca. I use she, they pronouns. What else should I say, I guess? I'm a rising senior at Vassar College. I'm a drama major and an education minor.
Do you want to share about your earrings?
Oh my god, yeah! Worms on strings! I like always like be playing with them so they're shedding a little bit.
Oh, I thought it was like a fun like I legit thought it was like a fun textured like
I mean like it
on,
is.
sometimes off.
No, it literally I just like they slowly shed.
That's great. So you make them yourself?
No, I'm a little bit of a fraud because I haven't learned how to make earrings, but I got them on Etsy, like
Nice.
$3.
Love them, and they have little eyeballs on them. If you can't see.
Worms on strings. There aren't many things that like I don't want to talk about. Like I like talking about myself, and I don't know. I work with kids, so I'm kind of just like they're gonna ask you the same thing a million times, no matter what. So it's kind of like,
What work do you do with kids?
I work at the preschool here, but I've also, I did CEL, Community Engaged Learning, at an elementary school for my certification. I'm getting certified to teach elementary school. Fun facts.
And you want to teach, like, deaf students theater, right?
Yeah, so I'm getting certified to teach elementary school, but last semester, I was like, ooh, I don't want to teach elementary school forever because there's so much teaching them how to be humans. Like, in preschool, that's all it is. Like, you're just teaching kids how to be a person, how to interact with other people, how to treat other people, and, like, that's one thing. But when you have to do that, and you also have to teach them how to read, like, I don't know if that's for me. That seems like a lot. So, my plan is to go to grad school for deaf education, and figure that out. Yeah, but I don't plan to go right after college. I'm student teaching this semester after I graduate, and then I'm gonna vibe check then.
That's great. No, I love that you're, like, figuring it out as you go a little more than saying, like, no, this is exactly what I have to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah, like, coming into college, I was like, all I want to do is act, and, like, I still feel that way to a certain extent, but simply I am not as inherently good at it as some other people, and that's fine. It is what it is. But I've been trying to broaden what makes me happy and figure out how to be content no matter where I end up.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
That's a great way of looking at it, and just, like, I so value finding contentedness in, like, whatever you're doing.
Yeah, I agree.
What aspects of your identity are important to you?
Yeah, well, I'm Jewish. I'm a lesbian. I was recently diagnosed with ADHD, and I kind of self-diagnosed autistic, but, like, that's whatever. But I do feel like that influences the way I navigate this world, clearly. Yeah. I'm also a quarter Chinese. My dad is half Chinese. I'm white, though. But, yeah, I think... Yeah, intersectionality, of course. I feel like
Can you explain that?
Yes, intersectionality is the fact that there are everyone's different identities like merge in different ways and interact in different ways, and there's not really a way to see a person, a thing, anything if you're not thinking about it intersectionally. Yeah. Yeah, so I think there are a lot of, like, I feel like being a white person who also is part Asian and is also Jewish, it's very much like people perceive me in different ways, and it's interesting seeing how that comes about and like how that affects interactions.
How does it affect your interactions?
Yeah, I've had a lot of people, I guess since you don't say your last name, I won't say my last name, but my last name it's Asian. And I've had a lot of people be like, oh, you're that last name? Or like, I had in high school someone I had known since elementary school was like, oh, you're Asian? I thought you just had a weird last name. And, like, she was Asian. But, like, I was like, one time I had a 5th grader surprised I was Jewish. And I was like, she was like, you don't look Jewish. And I was like, I have long brown curly hair. And, like, I don't know what else you're expecting. But obviously that's also interacting with kids and, like, that's something I love about teaching is teaching young kids, especially, is being able to kind of introduce them to these bits of identities and the fact that they're allowed to navigate that however they want.
Right. No, and I love that kids tend to ask very open questions.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm somebody who really likes questions about my identity in terms of, like, gender fluidity and that kind of thing. And so I would so much prefer somebody just come up to me and be like, so how's your gender work? And even though that's not necessarily, like, the ideal phrasing, I would so much rather that than them, like be unsure and make assumptions and, like, not ask their questions.
How do you feel about, are you a boy or a girl?
I mean,
like, from
it
little
totally
kids.
depends on context.
Yeah.
From little kids, great.
I know, right?
I'll be like, oh, I'm not, or I'll be like, I'm neither, and then I'll explain, like, I actually, my gender doesn't really fit in boy or girl, and generally they accept that very easily. I tend to do a lot of babysitting, and so I'll be really careful if I'm babysitting in terms of, like, parents, because I never want to have, like, I never want to be in a situation where a parent is uncomfortable with something I've told their child, even though I don't think that the idea of gender is inappropriate.
But you never know with parents.
But I don't know what the parents say, and so I try to be really intentional about, you know, gauging what the parents are comfortable with and not pushing that at all.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if a kid asks me, are you a boy or a girl, I'll say, oh, I'm not a boy or a girl. I actually, like, am a whole different gender or something like that. They usually don't ask that many follow-up questions.
Yeah,
they're usually just like,
okay,
yeah, exactly. But if a parent doesn't bring up things like pronouns or gender or anything like that, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to, like, bring it up with kids because I want to, like, make sure that the parents are fine with it. If I'm not in a babysitting role, then I'll be a little more open about, like, oh, I actually identify as something called gender fluid.
I definitely think, like, my neurodivergency affected, like, my own coming out to myself process, because I didn't, like, up until high school even think about it. I was like, I'm a girl, girls like boys, despite the fact that I don't like being around them at all ever. But it's simply how it is, because I've been thinking a lot about I don't know if symptoms is the word for, like, autistic traits. I guess autistic traits is the word. And, like, I really be taking things at face value, and I'm like, okay, that's what it is, so that's what it is, and I'm not going to put any more thought into it. It's great.
What aspects of your identity do you see as, like, positives or negatives, or how do you look at your identity?
I think
Identity
is so true. I don't know if I think of them as positive or negative. I think it's just how it is. I don't, like, I definitely think there are, like, I'm glad I'm not straight, but, like, I think it's, I think.
Why is that?
You know, I don't know. Straight culture, not for me. I mean, I think coming into my lesbianism and, like, realizing, oh, I don't have to, like, get married, have kids, and that's it. Like, it can be more. I don't have to birth children. Yeah. And I will not.
Just a little more freedom to live life as on the path that you choose instead of an expected path.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, because we live in a cishet society, and that's definitely been absorbed. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about internalized, like, homophobia or ableism or anything like that?
Oh my god, can we talk about comphet?
Sure, I don't know what that means.
You don't know? Okay, compulsory heterosexuality.
Sorry, it's like, go ahead and define compulsory.
Yeah, okay. Well, so it comes from an essay by Adrienne Rich, and it's basically all of the factors in society that tell women that they need to be with men and exclusively men, and that's, like, society, like, heterosexuality is compulsory, so, like, it's not a choice, it's something that you must do. But as I've been becoming more secure in my identity, I'm kind of like, okay, that's there sometimes it's not, and it's all good. But I think it was definitely something that when I learned about, I was like, whoa, damn.
Yeah. No, it's fun to find things that you see and you just, like, resonate with.
Oh, yeah. Certainly. And that's, like, I, like, realized I had ADHD and think I'm autistic because of TikTok, which is, like, so, like, everyone's like, oh, everyone thinks they have that, but, like, seeing things you resonate with and, like, being like, oh, I might feel a certain way for a reason, not just because my brain is broken. Crazy.
Right, and that it may be, like, it's not that TikTok is making people autistic or
Right.
making people have ADHD or whatever
Yeah.
all the other things are. Excuse me. It may be that because especially women and minorities tend to be underdiagnosed, that people are more likely to realize like signs and symptoms and traits that as you said,
Exactly.
that they wouldn't have realized had they only had this like stereotypical picture,
right.
that tends to fit men for like ADHD or autism or whatever.
Yeah, and that's definitely an issue in the whole like medical, I don't know if it's an industry field, because we're not, like, everything is catered towards white men. We're testing things on white men where it's all about white men, which is so scary.
Yeah. How can the world be made more accessible to you?
I have I feel like there are a couple of things to talk about, and one of them is like the fact that the theater industry is not accessible to anyone ever. And then also like the fact that we live in a culturally Christian country. Like, when it comes to that, like, I have some friends who are like, oh, but like Christmas isn't a Christian holiday anymore, it's totally commercialized. And like,
interesting.
Yeah, it is totally commercialized, but like you're still celebrating the birth of Jesus.
Right.
So like I'm not going to celebrate it. Many Jews do, and that's fine and dandy. But it's like, it's frustrating that people think that just because it's commercialized doesn't mean that it's still tied to a religion, and that's so many of the things that are just like, this is what we do because we live in America and our people. But like, and then in terms of theater, I've been realizing a lot lately through this program, like talking to some people who work in theater who are disabled, that there just is not enough of people getting what they need in theater. It's all, we come here and we are serving the show, and I guess because of that, the director and producers, and we do what we have to do. But there's not oh, what do you need to be here? What can we do to make you comfortable and safe? And there's definitely a move towards that with like intimacy directors, but it's definitely not the norm, which is so disappointing.
Yeah, but we've talked in this summer program about like supporting actors and artists, artists of all type, whether that's musicians or visual artists or whatever, in their work and not just supporting the product, right?
Yeah, definitely. And that's, I mean, it's so important. I saw the person who played Percy Jackson in the Percy Jackson musical, who has a TikTok, who, if anyone's interested in theater, has a lot of good stuff to say, Chris McCarroll. He was talking about how people act, like actors act as if they're a product, not a craftsman, which is like what it is. You're not a product, you're just doing what you do. And like, but the whole theater industry is just so, and I'm sure a lot of other art industries too, because it's all about money. And I, like, in my experience here, like, I see a lot of students and some professors trying to like work towards like small things to make it better, like doing intimacy exercises, like boundary setting exercises, and I haven't seen many of the professors be like excited about it, like indifferent at best. I had a professor be like, oh, well, that's not what it's like in the real world. And to me, I'm like, okay, then why aren't you working towards making it like that for us so that we can take it with us into the real world?
Yeah.
There's a lot of complacency.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to share?
I don't think so. I think we touched on a lot of things. Thanks
Yeah.
for inviting me.
Thank you so much for
fun.
doing this with me.
Yeah. Yay.
Bye.
Bye.